Underdog Bestball, our top 5 infielder values on Underdog. And we've talked in recent weeks, talked about the outfielder madness and how everybody's scrambling for outfielders on Underdog. And that leaves a lot of infielders as nice values. But I thought we'd nail down our top 5, the best values, the best of the best on Underdog in terms of the infield values. My number 1 is a guy I know you like, maybe not so much an Underdog, but Corey Seager. ADP on Underdog is 53.1. Love what he can do all around, and you got to expect some big weeks from him. He does have some injury concern that still lingers in the back of my mind, but he's a perfect kind of, in my opinion, a first infielder. I'd be happy with going, outfield, pitcher, and then maybe getting Corey Seager because, I think the floor is nice and there'll be some really high upside weeks with Seager as well. What do you think? Is Corey Seager a fine first outfielder on Underdog?
First infield, yeah, and especially because I know that you're not into him very much, but if I ended up with Adolis Garcia as my first outfielder, I don't mind the mini stack. I like when I stack my teams, I like to have one infielder and one outfielder. And my late stacks, I don't care where they come from, but I don't mind that at all because you said there's going to be some series where Texas is against some lesser teams, so I don't mind at all for the stack. Although, I mean, you want those two guys in your lineup regardless.
A little mini Rangers stack, all right.
Yeah, and I'm going through my head really quickly. Is Marcus Semien is a possibility. I don't know that there's really any other outfielder that I'm targeting from the Rangers. There's so many question marks, even towards the end. I don't know that there's anybody. But my first infielder at currently ADP 80.4 is Dansby Swanson, and I have him as a good price versus the market, and I like players that can steal a little bit. Although he's supposed to be in my lineup every week where I'm drafting him, but one of the things you do in best ball is you embrace volatility, and stolen base guys are that. You want him to do is you want a player that's going to beat his weekly average, and one way for a player to do that, good matchups, but is to be a stolen base guy and just have one of those weeks where he's facing an easy team to steal against. So that week he gets a couple of 3 steals, and beats his weekly average. I think Swanson can be a player of that ilk.
I hear you on that one. That's a good one. And player, my number 2 on my list of top 5 infielder values on Underdog. By the way, use promo code RWMLB on Underdog to get 6 free months of RotoWire in addition to the $100 deposit match. ONeill Cruz. Maybe Swanson's the better value just a few picks later, but I really like ONeill Cruz because in this Underdog format, best ball, of course, you don't have to worry about the bad weeks. You don't have to worry about him maybe hitting slumps and tanking your batting average. You just need to worry about the good weeks. And, man, talk about upside. I think the good weeks with a guy like ONeill Cruz are going to be among the best in the game. So I'll draft ONeill Cruz at 76.5 on Underdog for the good weeks, and I don't have to worry about the downside really at all.
Yeah, he's another guy that can sneak in some steals. So, sure, absolutely.
Oh, yeah, he'll sneak in a good number. Who's your number 2 value on Underdog among infielders?
So this is by ADP. It's not by what I consider to be value relative. I'll get to that with my third pick. But CJ Cron is next. And I kind of alluded to it with embracing volatility. I want Cron for his home starts. I think he might be my fourth infielder. Maybe not where he's drafted. Maybe he's my third. But the point being, I want him in my lineup half the time with those home starts. So I'll go CJ Cron.
Yeah, that's a good one. I'm not really in on him for regular leagues because I do think there's some trade risk. But
yeah, I guess.
For baseball, I get it. He could have some big days at Coors.
He could, and he signed the long term. Not much long term, but he did sign the extension. I guess I'm not as worried about.
Only 1 year, but
it was, but it's still. I think it was enough for me to. I don't know. To me, it's like, does Colorado know you can even make trades? I mean, I think they think it's a draft and hold league.
That's a good point. They are just
Well,
notoriously
they traded
unrealistic.
Grichuk. They traded for Grichuk. I mean, they made some. I don't know, but
Mhm. Well, my number 3 infielder value on Underdog is a guy drafted in that Beat Clay Link League, Jeremy Pena, ADP 100. Maybe he doesn't have the juice, the power, speed to really be like a home run type of best ball pick, but I like him as a guy who just will find his way into your lineup, like 13 out of the 26 weeks with just steady contributions, popping him over the short porch with the Crawford boxes. I'm buying in on Jeremy Pena even after 1 year. I had 0 shares last year, but I've seen enough already of Jeremy Pena of Houston to be confident in him at pick 100.
yeah, I was in on him last year and traded away in 2 keeper leagues and regretting it now. But no, I agree. I like him a lot. My third, and I kind of alluded to it, how I think he's just a silly sick value, is Jake Cronenworth. And
I knew he'd be on your list.
yeah,
I just
talking
knew
to
it.
some people about Underdog and Bestball and John Legeza for one, and Steve Baseball, who I talked to on the pod, they're telling me that I think towards the end you get a few more sharps than you may have, at least percentage wise. And player like Cronenworth, his ADP is likely to start to drop. So I've been playing chicken. I think I've been, it's like in the 120s. I've been taking him around 100. I have him ranked around 80. It'll probably take that one draft where I get burned before I, drop him into the 90s. But I can't not take Jake Cronenworth.
Yeah, again, I expected that one to be on your list, just given you are the one of the strongest Jake Cronenworth proponents out there this season. Next up, maybe my favorite infielder value on the entire board, one that really makes little sense to me, JT Realmuto at pick 130.5 on Underdog. He gets lumped in with the infielders, as most catchers do, aside from like Varsho, maybe a few others. But this just seems like a giant disconnect between the standard roto game, 2 catchers, and here. Realmuto's a 2020 guy. And so, yeah, you don't need catchers, but I still feel like he's far better than 130.5. So even though you don't need a catcher, he's a great infield option.
Yeah, I got my projections and I go by the rankings, and he has been, at or near the top of my list by the time, I'm looking around, and I don't know that there's any more of an injury risk because he is a catcher, but I just haven't ended up with him yet. But based upon my rankings, I agree with the call. I just haven't gotten him yet.
Yeah, he just, again, it's like he's a third rounder in 2 team, maybe even a second rounder in 2 catcher leagues. But here he goes so far later, and I just think he's, because of he just gets lumped in with infielders. He's not so special as a catcher. People are discounting him more than they should.
Yeah, that's the best way to put it. There's a stigma. There's a catcher stigma.
And Tristan Casas, I know you love.
Yeah.
Did you mention that?
Yeah. Well, that's the next guy. I think at the price, I'm taking some shots at that point, and I'm probably also pairing him with Adam Duvall at that point. So, yeah, and if it's a homer pick, maybe, but I think he has a chance to succeed big in Fenway Park.
My number 5 infielder value on Underdog, Jorge Polanco at 152.4. Kind of a disappointing year last year. I liked him as a sleeper last year, and it was a little underwhelming, but still like what this guy's brings to the table. His run at the end of 2021 was just awesome. I think the Twins will be pretty good. So yeah, I like Jorge Polanco is kind of like my fifth infielder at 152. Real quick, who's your number 5 infielder value on Underdog?
Will Myers. I had to make sure he was an infielder. Yeah, I love the park. So he's not going to get that many runs in RBI, but I think he's going to run or go back to running. So yeah, Will Myers, who apparently is on the upswing anyway. But so I'm saying the ADP is 237. I wouldn't be surprised if it gets into low 200s if it isn't already.
Well, awesome stuff. That'll do it for our Underdog Best Ball segment today. A reminder, Sign up with promo code RWMLB, and not only will Underdog double your initial deposit up to $100, but you also get 6 months of our RotoWire subscription for free.